This podcast may contain discussions of graphic violence, unsettling themes, supernatural phenomena, and other topics that some listeners may find disturbing or triggering. Listener discretion is advised. This podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only. The opinions expressed are simply those of the individual hosts and do not represent the profession of psychology or constitute professional advice.
Welcome back to another episode of Secret Passage Podcast. So glad you're here. How are you, Shannon?
I am pretty good this morning. I'm on my second cup of coffee, so it's going to get crazy.
Really? So I'm on my technically third cup of coffee, except I ran out I had accidentally bought the half calf
Oh,
coffee pods. So I had one cup of coffee. Like I looked in my little jar and I had one like full caffeine pod. And then I was like, oh shit. And then I remembered I had that box of like half calf. So in terms of caffeine, I'm on my second cup.
okay.
Because there's two halves equal a whole. Right.
That's amazing. You can drink more coffee if you get the half calf. I like this.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So Shannon, any secret passages that you went down this week?
Let me see. So, is it okay for me to do a throwback?
Please.
Okay. So, I kind of miss these days of remember when we were younger and we would hang out with our girlfriends a lot more? Like you and I used to hang out all the time.
Yeah.
So right after high school, I became closer with a friend who I'd been friends with in high school, but we had started hanging out a lot more. And it was like 1991, 92, just graduated. They were test marketing Zima in Sacramento.
I remember Zena.
And we were and in my town, I grew up in like a small suburb of Sacramento, and in my town, for fun, people would get together and drink in their cars and drive. So we were just sitting in her car one time and we were drinking Zimas, and we were talking about her breakup with her boyfriend, and she was like, this thing is like filed away in like, how did I survive to this point? This is like where. So we were sitting there talking, and she's like, yeah, we broke up. We talked about the breakup. And she's like, he still has my eye of the storm. Do you know what the eye of the storm is?
No.
It's that toy that you could buy back in the day that was like a globe with like lightning inside of it. And you could put your hands on the outside of the globe and the lightning would like follow your hands. The electric charges.
Why don't I don't know why I don't remember that, or I never saw that.
I never would have known about this. Well, actually, they were kind of a big deal like back then. So yeah, it's just like electric charges going off inside this globe, and you put your hands on it, and it attracts to your hands, and you can like move it around. And so she had one of those, and he had it still, and it was really late. It was like midnight, and we were sitting in her car, and we were like, "Let's go get the eye." So we went to his house. She somehow still had a key. His whole entire family was sleeping inside the house, and we went inside and we were laughing so hard. We were like, if they catch us, we're just going to be like, we just came for the eye. And so we walked into his house. We could have been killed if they thought we were like burglars or something. We went to his room. He was sitting there sleeping in his bed, and we grabbed the eye and we just left with the eye. And that is my vintage secret passage. Breaking and entering.
Wow.
I know.
I think about just the dumb shit we used to do. Because that reminds me of when my first year of college, I had this friend who we had been in high school together, and we both ended up going to the same college, and we used to love to go out dancing in San Francisco. We both had like fake IDs, and we would go dancing. And it was a situation where we got a ride into the city and we were dancing. And then I don't know why, we just decided we were just going to figure out how we'd get home later. Yeah. Yeah, we'd figure it out, right? Because we just so badly wanted to go and drink and dance and have fun and smoke clove cigarettes
Oh
because
God,
that's what you did back
cloves.
then.
Yes.
And so like it's getting later and there was a bouncer at the club. He was young. He was like in his early 20s, and my friend and I were like 18, 19 at the time. And he had been just talking to us, and we knew him from like the other times when we had come. And we were like, we're trying to figure out how we're going to get back to school. And he's like, oh, well, just come with me. Because this is before cell phones. He's like, I've got a phone at my place, and you can call your friends or call someone to come get you. It's fine. Stupid, dumb asses we
Oh my
were.
God. Were you guys like, we don't know any, we don't have any friends or family around here and nobody knows where we are?
Yeah, we could be dead, and it would take days for them to find us or find out we were missing. Might as well have said that. So we are just like stupid and a little drunk, and we go with him. He lives in like this weird, like residential hotel type thing where there's like a shared bathroom in the hallway. He has no phone.
Oh my.
He tries to tell us, like, hey, maybe you guys should just spend the night.
Oh,
So my friend and I are like, hell no. We leave. We are walking, like we are like in the Tenderloin, right?
oh,
Just part of
geez.
San Francisco. Walking in heels in short skirts. I
Oh,
have a pointy nail file in my pocket. This homeless guy starts trying, like yelling at us. I like flash him my nail file, and we somehow make our way to like where the buses are. You know, the Caltrans, like the
yes.
bus station.
Mm-hmm.
And we get on a bus and we get back to, because at this point it's probably like 5 in the morning, something like that. And we managed to take a bus that drops us outside of Mills College. And we go inside and fucking collapse in her room. And
Oh,
then we are woken up a few hours later because there's a fire and we have to evacuate.
oh my God.
But we were fine and the school was fine. But like, it's just that we're just so stupid.
Oh,
I
I
think
know.
about myself then, and I'm like, there were so many times I could have died. So your secret passage reminded me of my throwback one as well. It's just like, haha, let's go do something reckless and dangerous.
Oh, I know, it's hard. Sometimes I even am like, am I actually dead right now? And this is all my dream. Am I like,
Jeez.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
surprising I lived. Wow, I'm glad you got back.
Me too. But you know what? This is a great segue into our
Yes.
story, which is the dumb shit girls will do, the
For
dumb
money.
situations they get themselves in. God help
For,
us all.
yeah, all for what? The almighty dollar.
Yes. Or in our case, I just want to party and have fun. And you're like, I just want the eye.
I just want the eye. We were like shadowy figure. Like if he looked up, he would have seen two shadowy figures. And we were joking. We would just say it like that. We just came for the eye. Anyway, okay.
He's like, take it. Just take it. Just
I'll
don't hurt
just
me.
go.
Don't hurt me. Oh my goodness.
Oh, then we actually, when we left, we were driving back home and he lived in the country kind of, and we ended up, our car went into a ditch. That's right. And then we had to call someone to pull us out.
Of course.
Yeah. All right,
Of
let's go.
course that happened. Did he notice the eye was missing?
He never said anything about it. It's the same guy. We stole his Mr. T doll, and then we took all these pictures of Mr. T in these situations, like a tire about to run over him, and like put him in a blender, and then we sent him a letter with those pictures, and we were like, I pity the fool who don't pay my ransom.
I ain't get no plane.
Okay.
Okay. So today's episode is about Dubai porta potty parties. Trigger warning, everyone. If you are disturbed, offended by talk of sex trafficking, violence against women, sex work,
Or poop.
poop, pee, and grotesque sexual fetishes, I'm trying to just cover all our bases, then this is not the episode for you. It's pretty gross.
But
If you're
scat
eating,
lovers, if you're a scat
stop.
lover, gather around.
Yeah. If you're curious about any of these things and have an iron constitution, then keep on listening.
Yeah, don't listen at lunch. That's funny. Yeah, don't eat it
Yeah,
while you're
yeah,
listening.
yeah. So I'm just gonna say that this story got us wandering down the rabbit hole of Dubai porta potty parties because of a recent case around March, just like even a week ago, a few days ago, week ago, about a model went missing for 10 days in Dubai after a quote unquote sex party. And she was found with her spine broken, many other bones broken, on the side of the road. She was unable to speak, like physically unable to speak. And she's in the hospital, clinging to life. It looks like she will make a full recovery, according to her family. I don't know if she's still unable to speak or not. She was a Ukrainian model. Her name's Maria Kovalchuk. And when she missed her flight to Thailand a couple days later, her family got worried and then went on a search for her. She was found on the side of the road. She's 20 years old. It's really frightening. But there's no confirmation that she was at a sex party. This apparently is something that she had told her friends, that she was going to this kind of special event.
But then the cops said that she was had fallen in a construction zone.
Right, yeah. Well, no. What happened is she just for some reason felt compelled to wander through a construction area and then fall,
And break all of her limbs and her
and then
spine.
and then somehow drag herself to the side of the road. Right? Makes absolutely no fucking sense.
Sorry. I
It's
just
okay.
you made my coffee come through my nose. It's so implausible.
Right, nothing to see here is basically what the local authorities are saying. Nothing to see here. Move along,
Yeah.
Local Russia media outlets. I'm reading from the New York Post. Local Russian media outlets have reported that Maria's relatives believe she could have been made a sex slave and raped for several days before eventually being thrown onto the road. It is suspected by some that she attended a cult-like party with quote-unquote unknown sheikhs, where models and OnlyFans stars, especially those from Eastern Europe, are known to be popular. The event is believed to have been a, quote, porta potty party, a phrase used to describe gatherings with female influencers who are paid exorbitant amounts of money to carry out horrific and degrading sexual acts, sometimes involving feces.
Ugh.
The women who can be paid around $100,000 to attend are said to be subjected to extreme abuse to fulfill the dark desires of wealthy men. Kovalchuk reportedly met with two men from the quote-unquote modeling business while in Dubai, and the next day she told her family she was going to stay with them for the night. A few days later, she was meant to fly to Thailand, but did not make the flight and was not heard from again until she was found on the side of the road. Her mother, Anna, flew from Norway to be with her daughter while she recovered from her horrific injuries. Her family says she will make a full recovery. She is getting medical treatment and everything will be all right, her mother posted on social media. There is an assumption that she went to a party, but the promoter who organized these parties did not see her. Maria was eventually found in hospital in serious condition. She has no documents, no phone, nothing. She underwent 3, now 4 operations, and she cannot speak. Dubai police confirmed to the media that the Ukrainian citizen previously reported missing is currently hospitalized, receiving medical care with her family present. They claim that the woman's injuries occurred due to falling from a construction site. So, that is what the New York Post reported, and it's essentially just what I'm seeing in all the other media outlets as well.
Yeah. And then, there's like, we talked about this, the whole does it exist, does it not exist? Because I guess what I'm hearing when I read articles about it or look at Reddit or listen to other podcasts is that people are saying because there is no verification or evidence from people in authority positions like law enforcement or whatever, that there's some doubt that these things even exist. But we're hearing from women that they do.
Oh yeah, no, we are hearing from women that they do. And for listeners who are completely just have never heard of these types of parties, I'm just going to give you a quick kind of definition, quick little background. So, the Dubai porta potty trend refers to an extremely explicit and disturbing alleged social media rumor about alleged wealthy individuals engaging in degrading sexual activities, often involving significant financial transactions. The term suggests extremely graphic scenarios involving wealthy individuals from Dubai. That they don't have to be from Dubai, but these things happen in Dubai, and I suspect other places as well. So purportedly, these individuals in Dubai pay individuals tons of money for deeply inappropriate and humiliating sexual encounters. These claims are unverified. How can you fucking verify it? And then the sources that are verifying them are not, from police organizations or things like that. So they're sort of deemed what's the word?
Non-authorities. I'm like, if someone's pooping in my mouth and making me have sex with animals, I become the authority on what
Yeah.
happened.
I think I'm can speak with authority on this thing that fucking happened to me. Okay.
Yeah.
So the trend appears to have spread through social media platforms as a shocking and sensationalized urban legend, likely combining elements of internet rumor, potential misinformation, and provocative storytelling. Most credible sources consider these stories to be unsubstantiated internet folklore rather than documented events, even though there's video, there's pictures, and there's women telling their stories. This is what one woman has to say about it on X. I believe you sent this to me, Shannon. Okay. Now that a 20-year-old influencer has been found by the side of the road with all her limbs and her spine broken, maybe the world will become aware of porta potty parties in Dubai.
So they call them. It's interesting that I just discovered yesterday, is
Yes.
that the women are called. They're you are a Dubai porta potty. Like you're treated like a toilet.
Yes.
I didn't understand at first what that meant, but yeah.
Yes. I think that we can't really talk about the Dubai porta potty phenomena without also talking about yachting
Yeah.
and yacht girls. Not just yacht girls, but yacht boys. So let me give you a quick little background on that, listeners, and because I think that it all kind of ties together. So the term yacht girl or yacht boy originated primarily from online social media platforms and internet culture, particularly gaining traction on platforms like TikTok and Instagram around 2022 and 2023. It refers to young women and young men who are perceived to socialize with wealthy men, often on luxury yachts, typically in locations like the Mediterranean, such as Monaco, Saint-Tropez, the Greek islands. The term became popular through social media discussions and meme culture, particularly among Gen Z and younger millennial audiences. It essentially describes a certain lifestyle aesthetic involving affluent social circles, luxury travel, and perceived transactional social relationships. While the exact origin is difficult to pinpoint precisely, the term gained significant viral attention on platforms like TikTok, where users would discuss and create content about this perceived social phenomenon. The concept blends elements of social media flexing, lifestyle influencer culture, and commentary on social dynamics among young, wealthy social circles. I first became aware of the term yachting, listening to, I love TikTok so much. I love it. I go to it for like all my pug and French bulldog content, true crime, kind of Hollywood gossip, et cetera, et cetera. And there was a creator on TikTok named Kyle Marissa Roth, who sadly passed away a couple years ago. But she would discuss the yachting and how a lot of young, not just social media influencers or Instagram models, but like young Hollywood would make hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars from going on these trips and sleeping with billionaires. And some names, and I'm just these this is all alleged, of course, but some of the names that were thrown around were like Emily Ratajkowski, who's a model actress, Amanda Bynes, and that a lot of being introduced to yachting at such a young age is also played into her, her mental health spiraling out of control. Lindsay Lohan, Zac Efron, and some others, and that the idea is that they are making good money with modeling gigs, acting gigs, and stuff, but the real money was made on these yachting trips. Again, this sort of gets into this idea of these transactional relationships. It's pretty dark. I'm not always. I don't know that everyone that engages in yachting is having a crisis over it. Some of the folks, as I understand it, are just very kind of technical about it.
So what's
Like,
the
well, this is what I'm going to
function?
do. What's that?
Yeah, so like for the people who have the money and the power and the status and the yachts, what do they bring these people on there for? Is it for like to party, have sex, everything?
I think everything, and I think depending on who some of these billionaires are, some of them, I think, it becomes a little bit of like a Weinstein situation where, hey, I can get you a better contract. I can get you better roles,
I see.
right? So sometimes it's that, or sometimes it's money, jewelry, in exchange for sex, for sure sex, parties, who knows what else, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then it really shows just the kind of mythology that's put out in these very heavily curated, social media posts by so many young women and men about how great their lives are, and that a lot of what they have comes at a very great cost.
Oh God.
And so there's that, right? So there's that's the yachting culture. And then I feel like that goes hand in hand, of course, with these Dubai porta potty parties, and um what the expectations are, and what your price is.
God, this is making me think about. I listened to that podcast yesterday. I don't want to derail this too much, but I just wanted to make this point. That I listened to this podcast. We were talking about how, in terms of the trajectory, culturally, we were talking about how porn is a big influence probably on these practices. If we
Oh,
trace them
big time.
back. So I found this great podcast yesterday. It's the Fit Mind podcast, and the host, his name is Liam, and he had this neuroscientist or neuro medical doctor, Dr. Hilton, on, and they were talking about. We can get to this later for sure, like a
Sure.
deeper dive, but um, he was he was making the case against porn, and there's so many different angles, but he was talked about how there's this concept of replacement. So you start to replace a person with parts, and a person becomes like a collection of body parts instead of a whole person, or a usable item that you throw away, like a piece of trash. And he was saying it's like this slavery mentality, like they're basically hiring a slave, using them up, and then, you know, creating a class of like discardable people, is what he said. And that's sort of like what I think about, right? Like you're just a person I can buy, and then when you're done, I pay you off and go, you know? Um,
Right.
anyway, yeah,
The real kink, the real fetish is in the dehumanization.
yeah, right. And it's so like anti humanity.
Yes. And it's interesting because that reminds me when you sort of talk about the this in the context of pornography, this is very quick. This is I'm going to read this because it's absolutely worth reading and adding into the discussion. It's very quick. But there was an article posted by I want to make sure I'm pronouncing their name correctly. Galdarash. It's called "The Dubai Porta Potty is the End Product of the Digital Crisis," and this came out April 19th, 2024, so almost a year ago. And so it reads: I heard about it. I knew what it probably was. I Googled it anyway. I read, and yes, I feel sick. But I'm not surprised. Not at all. Up until a few months ago, the biggest trending videos on porn sites had the words force and humiliation in their titles. Now that those words are blocked from porn sites, instead you will see adverts with animated women in those same desired scenarios. This isn't handcuffs. This is humiliation on another level. And it's getting worse and worse because the more that's watched and consumed, the less wild it is. Newer, harsher, sicker porn has to keep being made, and now here we are.
Yeah.
With men getting off on women drinking their own vomit, being forced into having sex with animals, and being defecated on. Feel sick? It gets worse. Our brains are getting bored faster. Digital content and the speed in which we want to see it, to be excited by it, and be finished with it is getting shorter and shorter. Our kids, at the peak of their brain development, are on their phones, on these apps, because more and more demanding of speed and entertainment. They do not have to be watching porn to have their sexual drive affected. The 10-second reel and swipe to move on technology is rewiring us and them. Entertain me. Now. Faster. Funny needs to be funnier. Sexy needs to be sexier. Kink needs to be kinkier until it's no longer kink. Is digital content harmless? GPs are reporting that 13-year-olds can no longer get an erection unless they watch hardcore humiliation-based porn. What happens when the image isn't enough? That's when you get the Dubai Porta Potty, called the gift for the man that has everything. Sadly untrue. It's the gift for the man that can't get an erection any other way. You don't need to be a billionaire or live in a country where women are second-class citizens to have that drive. Your brain can be wired that way just through overuse of your phone. So that in the end, even if you feel disgust and shame by it, the desire's still there. The end.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, add to that like 95% of all youth are learning about sex from pornography.
Yeah.
And, you know, these are like hardcore videos where coercion is sometimes part of the vignette, you know, that's being portrayed. You know more about this than I do. But yeah, do you want me to say a little bit about the brain stuff since
Yeah,
we're on
let's go
it?
for it.
Okay. So this is, I know this. Okay, this listening to this podcast is super healthful. It's helpy, so helpy, and because the guy who's being interviewed, he talks about the brain in terms we can understand and not too scientific, and so it was really helpful to hear him just dumb it, not dumb it down, but make it less boring and technical.
Mm-hmm.
But he talked about with porn. Okay, so our brains love novelty, right? We like to learn new things, and we're programmed to like novelty. And so with sex, there's like only so many ways we can do it, and there's only so many holes that can be penetrated. And so with porn, basically what happens is if as you watch it and you keep watching it, the whole thing about it's an addiction. I mean, I think that there's some talk in the field of psychology as though porn can't be an addiction. But it basically is just like any other sort of addiction or addictive process, like gambling, where if you have enough contact with it and you start overusing it, that you have a decrease in the white matter of your brain, which is like the brain's cable system that connects different areas of the brain. So it becomes kind of dysfunctional, the white matter, and it stops working well. And that happens with any compulsive disorder. And then what happens is porn becomes like the top pleasure to the exclusion of other pleasures, right? Like people who are alcoholics, they're just like, that's their main drive, right? They just need to
Right.
get their fix, or Coke or whatever. But he talked about the triple hook, and I thought that was a really cool way to describe the stuff that happens. So, because I was always wondering about, why does it escalate? Like, why can't it just? But it's because it's like any other addiction, right? Like if you drink, you develop a tolerance, and you need more in order to get the high. And so thinking about it in those terms sort of demystifies it, and it makes it clear that this actually does escalate and can become an addiction. And culturally, we see the escalation from like Playboy when we were kids, and then to now, where people are, going to these parties where people are making them have sex with animals and children and eating poop and all that.
Well, I mean, gosh, look at a few episodes ago when we talked about Stephen Clancy Hill.
Right.
And he ran up like he ran up he maxed out several credit cards on pornography. If that's not addiction, I don't know what is.
Exactly. And one of my favorite books on addiction is The Biology of Desire, and it's by Mark Lewis, who's a neuroscientist, and he is like, he nails it, I feel like, because we think about addiction as though it's a disease, right? It's a disease you have, but it's not a disease process. It's his argument is, it's a learned behavior, and it's driven by our brain's natural plasticity. And addiction emerges, from the interplay between our desires, like dopamine that tells us to want and to get, and habit. So, and the brain's reward system. So it basically adapts. Our brain is doing its adaptive thing, its normative thing, to when it engages with a substance or with compulsive behaviors, and it strengthens neural pathways that are associated with cravings, immediate gratification, and it weakens self-regulatory control. So the brake of the brain gets weak, and it creates this feedback loop of wanting. And it's like basically how our brain works with how it learns anything that we deeply desire, like a good career or mastering a new craft or falling in love. It's not maladapt. I mean, it's not a disease.
Right.
And it's not a permanent pathological state. It's like you can alter it through experience and through change. Like, you see it all the time with abstinence models. And by changing your behavior, your brain then changes. But the triple hook thing that Donald Hilton talks about, I thought was really cool. So he basically says that you got this decrease in white matter. So the connection between the control areas of the brain and the reward system become dysfunctional. They don't work very well. So there's like a dumbing down of executive control. So it doesn't work as well as it used to. The stop mechanism doesn't work. And then you have the pleasure system, the dopamine system becomes degraded, because it's overused to the point where it's like desensitized. So then to get the same hit, whether it's like alcohol, sex, whatever, you have to have more or different. And then the third thing, which I thought was really cool, was this false relationship forms. And you probably see this as a performer, and I've seen it in your comments actually. So this false relationship happens where porn becomes like a friend or a crutch. It's like it's always waiting, it's always ready, it never says no, it's totally reliable, and it becomes this hook. because of it, when you have an orgasm or when you are engaged with it, there's this release of an attachment neuropeptide, and you end up bonding to the experience or the performer, and it's like super imprinting. So the performer or the act of watching porn, and people are often very particular about who they like.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes like a crutch. So I thought that was really interesting, that piece about the neuropeptides and the attachment piece, and how that is a part of why it's so hard to, and also why it impacts people's relationships with real people, because real people aren't always ready, aren't always available, aren't always gratifying. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, anyway, and so you can see all of that with this.
Yeah. It's like the author of that Medium article is essentially saying, which is this is how we get to the Dubai Porta Potty party.
Yes.
All of this is leading to that.
Right, the desensitization, like it become less responsive. Like if you're a person who's a consumer, obviously these people, they're consuming other humans. Um, their brain is like less responsive to normal dopamine and everyday pleasures. And then there's like the craving and the compulsion part, right?
Right.
And the lack of impulse control. And if you have the money and the means, you can just stay on that track. It's like Hostel.
This is it. It all comes together. This is very much like Hostel.
Yeah.
This the wealthy elites using and abusing, you know, killing, right, for all intents and purposes, these that they deem lesser than.
Wild.
Which leads me to this piece of. I'm going to share this account from a woman who endured the experience of being essentially bought. So again, this is all alleged, right? It's maybe she's lying. I don't think she is, but maybe she is. Okay. Now, I don't think English is her first language, so it may sound a little bit choppy. Okay. I thought within me, no one needs to know that I've traded my body for jewelry and clothes. We're far from home. What happens in Dubai dies in Dubai. Then I made the mistake of accepting that exchange. The appointment was then scheduled for the next day. On D-Day, a man came to pick me up at 10 a.m. from my hotel in a poser Lamborghini Diablo and took me to see Mr., who approached me. Then he asked me to sign a non-confidence agreement because in Dubai, due to their religion, all secrecy was little, and why one night sex, I would be entitled to everything I wanted. So he quickly handed me a bag of bills to the guy who came to pick me up, who more looked like bodyguard due to physical advantage, and ordered him to take me shopping. Then he handed me a big envelope. I had a dream day, and amongst Dubai's major stores and restaurants, massage parlors, giant shopping and malls, etc. For the first time, I was able to buy an original Chanel bag and Hermes sandals. I bought perfume, clothes from Yves Saint Laurent, Prada, Louis Vuitton, wallets, Balenciaga, and many more brands of the elite. After my shopping, his bodyguard put me in my hotel and told me to prepare for 10 p.m. He will come back to pick me up to meet my boss's needs. I couldn't believe it. It seemed like a dream. I was so happy with my shopping. I really didn't care what came next. Uh-oh. Around 10 p.m. on time, the bodyguard came back to pick me up and took me to the house of the billionaire man. We were stationed in his mansion by the sea. We went to the pier. We entered a super sophisticated boat and we went to the sea. OMG, my ordeal was about to begin. He wasn't alone. There were 4 other men with him. I didn't have the right to talk. I just had to hold on until it was all over. I thought I would only have to deal with one man. Everything was changing already. No, I don't even have words. It was far more than I could handle that night. I was their sexual object. actually the object of their sadism. They penetrated me in all the holes. They put me on a leash, and I
Mm.
was forced to have sex with a dog, and I couldn't speak. They tied me up with a gag that had a pink ball, like a pink ball gag. They shoved things into my anus and vagina, so suffocating. I'm not sure what this means. Held her up.
Hmm.
Maybe she was feeling suffocated, and so they were holding her up.
Mm.
While they scrubbed in my face, in my own feces, choked me with their dick till I threw up multiple times, made me drink my vomit, one
Oh.
peed on my face and pooped in my mouth. I was forced to swallow all that fecal matter
Oh.
and a bunch of other unexplainable, I'm not sure what this word is, things. After doing all this, I was thrown in the water, and the boss told his bodyguard to get me out of the water. He then gave me a big towel to cover myself. I was shaking, crying uncontrollably. I could feel my anus bleeding and my swollen vagina full of bruises and sore. I
Oh.
smelled filth, a mixture of feces, urine, and acid sperm. Checked into my hotel around 4 a.m. in a state of shame. My friend came to see me around 9 o'clock, saw me in this condition, and told me, "My dear, you'll get used to it. I remember seeing her on the boat last night, like me." I
Yikes.
asked her why she didn't tell me what was going to happen. Oh, I guess her friend sold her out, right?
Ugh.
She told me that not everyone has foreign practices. Sometimes it's just sex, really, and that she didn't want to scare me by taking the risk of turning down the proposal. I was shocked. How could she put me through this? Today I feel dirty. I lost my humanity, my dignity. I want to die. Everything I got, those expensive gifts and $1 million purchases in exchange tonight, disgusts me. Months go by and I still smell feces, urine, and sperm in my mouth as if they're being deposited in me now. I needed to talk about this because no one knows what I've been through until today except my friend. She destroyed me. I know she will read it. I just want her to know that she ruined my life. I don't even know if I'll ever have kids one day. I'm so broken. I think about suicide all the time. I think I'm going crazy. I hear voices whispering where there's silence. I close my eyes and remember that moment and they just laughing and having fun.
Ugh.
I sometimes catch myself screaming and crying with no apparent explanation. Thank you for not judging me. I made mistakes and trusted the wrong person. My greed and ambition today made me pay dearly. Thanks for reading me, Anonymous.
Wow.
There is an organization called Detained in Dubai that works with victims. It's run by a woman called Rada Sterling. So Rada Sterling runs Detained in Dubai, and she's aware of these parties, and yeah, she specializes in legal issues affecting foreigners in the Middle East.
Sounds like there's like a multi-level marketing situation happening where they have their little soldiers going out and recruiting.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I don't doubt that there are some willing participants in these things. For example, in adult, I mean, this is not mainstream adult, but there are performers who do scat. They do scat videos, scat probably appointments,
Mm-hmm.
with people who are into it. They consume it and also expel it for people. There was one account I was like, I would go to this one performer's account. I want to say I don't know that she was on OnlyFans because OnlyFans won't allow things like even suggesting any kind of fecal anything, urine anything. I'm not sure if she would. I think she spoke in code and stuff like that, but I would see pictures and images and stuff. I think her account eventually got banned,
Mm.
but it was that thing of like,
I know.
how do you not? How does your gag reflex not work? Or I guess that's part of it because then they,
Throw up.
they want you to also consume the puke.
Oh my God. My
But yeah,
body is like tingling talking about this. It's
yeah, it
so.
is revolting.
I
It
mean,
is so revolting.
I guess you would just get it. I mean, I guess because I don't know. In the situation itself, I imagine you go into survival mode, but like because if they opt out, they lose out on the money, right? Can they opt out? The story I read, and you read it too, or
Yeah.
heard, is that they told her she could leave, this woman, and that but she had to find her own way home, and she was out in the middle of nowhere.
Right. And did she not have, she didn't have money, she didn't have her phone because they took her phone.
Yeah.
So how was she going to even get home? So I think that's the trick, is the illusion of free will for these women. It's like, sure, you can leave. And it's like, you don't know where you are. You
Right.
have nothing with you. And then you start to bargain, right? Like, all right, well, if I do this, then I can, at the very least, I can go home, and I will also be given money, and I never have to think about this or do this again. And then there are those that I believe are just really stoic about it. They're just like, this is what I do, and they do it willingly.
Mm-hmm.
And then those that, yes, are tricked.
Can't you die from eating poo?
Yeah, I think you can get, well, you'll get, at the very least, you'll get,
Sepsis?
yeah, giardia, right?
Oh, God.
Dysentery, like all these things. I mean, I think probably what happens, I would venture to guess that your body tries to protect itself through vomiting,
Yeah.
and so the bulk of the stuff, you vomit out, and then I would hope that these ladies go get some antibiotics. But yeah, that's my thought went there too. I'm like, how did they not just succumb to, like, fucking disease and die?
I
Um,
I have to
yeah.
think that our brain. So someone told me once about their story of being sexually assaulted, and they told me something that was very reassuring. It's like those stories you hear of people who face terrible situations like a plane crash or a car crash and they live. And she told me that she really felt peace and she could like look down on the situation and felt nothing but compassion. And I was like, thank God for our wonderful brains if that's what they do for us when we're in the middle of this terrifying. Because I just, for me, it's like, yeah, there's no escape element. Like, here I am with these people who made this agreement to meet with me and did not give me informed consent. I'm sorry. There's no informed consent process with this, because if you knew that, would you say yes? I mean, maybe there is. And I don't know what paperwork they sign. I know they sign an NDA, but you go into the situation and you're just stuck and the only way out is through. And I'm hoping their brains just like take them somewhere
Dissociation.
else. Yeah.
I mean, I can't even compare anything I've been through to what they've been through, but I've told you about some scenes I've done where I go away.
Yeah.
And you become like a physical, just like this sort of robot going through the motions, and you understand that there is an end point, like it has to end.
Yeah.
And I'm imagining that is how any of these women kind of survive. It is, they go somewhere else, they
My
check out. I mean, it's the only way, I would think.
Oh, think about how compelling money is.
Yes, it's funny, there I think we've talked about this before, that it's misquoted a lot, that money is the root of all evil, but it's that's not true. It's actually the love of money is the root of all evil. Like, money is necessary, but when it becomes God to you, that's where trouble happens, when you can be bought. And I think it's less, maybe, difficult for someone who is in such dire financial straits where they can't survive, where they are willing to do anything just to fucking survive, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we are programmed to try to save our own lives.
Mm-hmm.
And you do what you have to do. But then there are some that they are seduced by things and stuff.
Yeah, because money, I mean, money is so tied to survival, but it also becomes like a representation of self. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
And that's where it gets really hard, and then it's never enough. We get back to the Lily Phillips thing of like, when is it enough? When you've made $1 million already, how what's the magic number? There is no magic number. It's like
Yeah.
cocaine. You keep doing, you do a line, you do a line, you do a line, and then the joke, what do you do on cocaine? More cocaine, right?
Yeah.
And so it becomes that, and then of course, your lifestyle radically changes, and then you start needing more and more stuff. There's, I think I might have mentioned this in when we talked about Lily Phillips. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but there's an escort I know who has made a fucking fortune over the course of I don't know how many decades. And she's smart with her money, and she invests her money. She does all of these things. She could stop, but she won't,
Mm-hmm.
because she's addicted to making more and more and more money. She can't stop. She's addicted to the hustle, right?
Yeah, and the
And the gamble of
reward.
it, because it's obviously not legal work, but she just can't stop. And I feel like that might be where Lily is. And then I feel like that's when you start to, how far will you go? The joke, what would you do for $1 million?
Yeah.
And then you try to think of the most outrageous thing, like how far would you go? And I think that's where we are now.
The same thing applies to consumers of porn,
Yeah,
drinkers of alcohol. It's like addiction to money.
yeah,
The reward system gets hijacked, and the same thing we just talked about. It's like it has more, and especially in that, in order to stay relevant as an OnlyFans person, you have to kind of offer something, like offer something to the market that's new and unique and more outlandish than the before.
right.
And that's right. That's what we talked about before, the race to the bottom with this kind of thing. It's so hard for me to believe that couldn't be just like sated, that desire with having so much security. But I think you're right. There's got to be it looks like addiction, because why would you subject yourself? It looks like the people we see who are addicted living on the streets. It's like you put yourself through so much to get what? The reward of more money? I don't know. I mean, they say it's satisfaction. Lily Phillips and Bonnie Blue both say, "Oh, I'm doing this because I'm good at it and I love it." But
I think they love the money. They
yeah,
wouldn't do it for free.
no,
They wouldn't do it for $20 an hour. I'm hard pressed to believe they would do it for $20 an hour. I've told you this before. Like, what one of the things I enjoy doing is pet care, animal care, and I would drag my ass out of bed at 5 in the morning to go walk dogs for $20 an hour at this pet resort, and I never felt like it wasn't enough money, and I
yeah,
I liked being with the animals. And I got a sense of I got real satisfaction out of spending time with them and taking them on walks and exercising them and petting them. And but I would have done it for 15 an hour. I
yeah.
take care of animals. I would do it. It's not about the money at that point. I'm just like,
Jesse,
Jesse, yes, Jesse
I
the
love
Himalayan. Are you kidding?
Jesse.
But yeah, I but then I've told you this too. I've done scenes like, an anal scene, and I agree upon a rate, and then I do it, and I'm just like, I'm always like, it never quite feels like enough money. Not saying that I was there against my will or I didn't like my scene partner, but I'm just like, it doesn't seem like enough
Mm-hmm.
because of what you're doing, and because there's a cost. There is a
Yeah,
cost to that. And so I don't believe for a second that Bonnie or Lily would do any of that stuff if it was even $100 an hour. It's not enough money. I think that they like the money, and there's nothing wrong. I mean, I'm not judging them for that. I get it. I'm still a sex worker. I understand. I'm deeply conflicted and wrestling with this shit,
mm-hmm.
especially being on my faith journey. I really really wrestle with it. I really do.
Yeah.
But part of being honest is like, I'm not here for my health. I don't
Right.
think they're here for their health. I think money is the motivator, and but also I think the illusion and the fantasy of their brand is that this is just the funnest, greatest thing in the world, and they're there because they love it, because that's what the consumer wants to believe.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, it's how we can move forward with, it just feels okay. So it's such a refreshing take, right? Like to hear your experience, which is sort of punctures this bubble of denial around the whole industry. How the industry is like untouchable in a way, right? Like it pays because there's so much money involved and it's a big business, like big tobacco, that it sort of pays to overlook the science of it and follow the pleasure, because sex seems like it's natural, it's healthy, it's like a easy cheap high, and their business depends on putting forth this image as though it's not like problematic or costly to them at all.
Oh, well, no, and then you also have to factor in also these weird ideas about how we are not supposed to quote unquote kink shame.
Right. Oh yeah,
No,
right,
I'm
right.
sorry. I'm sorry. There's some shit that I'm gonna fucking shame. I'm sorry.
Exactly. I mean, this gets into the whole like, okay, so this is interesting. This the podcast lesson to really made helped me think about this in a new way, because we I have been hesitant to criticize the industry and everything, because it felt like I'm sitting on high and making a personal judgment against a person or people. But really, it's a public health issue. And that's how he framed it in the podcast. And I was like, yes. And as a public health issue, we as a society should be talking about it on a societal level and how we're going to deal with it on a societal level. And there's the whole faction of people that are like pro porn, and they just won't hear how the criticisms of it and the way it is detrimental to people's relationships and lives. And they're so invested in this non shaming. It's a whole issue that we have culturally in general, which is like ultra permissiveness, no questions asked, accept everything. And I don't think that's the right path in terms of the health of our society. Do you?
No, I don't.
And
I
yeah.
don't. And the bottom line is this: like I have three teenage sons, and my oldest is at an age, and his girlfriend is at an age where some people enter into porn, and it's terrifying
Mm-hmm.
because and even he's like, my I know my brain isn't fully developed, you know and I'm very protective of him and his girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
and when I hear stories about 14, 15-year-old girls, the one girl in particular, I may have mentioned this before, I don't know, but her a picture of this 15-year-old girl was being passed around, and she had cum all over her face
Mm-hmm.
from a guy, that came on her face. And where do you see that? You see that in porn. It's a fetish
Mm-hmm.
in porn, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh
Oh, it's like one of the number one
yeah,
things. And
facial, yeah.
right, and it speaks to how those like the scripts that people learn from
Yes.
porn, and like that those just get applied in this like, this is what they said in the podcast. I thought was beautiful. He said there's a stifling sameness that comes from watching porn that swallows up individuality. And it's like you just following a script at that point, and that script is kind of coercive. Like there's like research done on this paper recently, I guess, that where people reported that like the men, they wanted to pull out and come on the girl's face, and the women's like, what am I getting out of this, and didn't want to do it, but the guys would persist and become coercive in their behavior or their words. And that's what is happening in relationships now as a result of people having a steady diet of these images. And yeah.
No, and then of course, as we kind of read about with Louise Perry's book, it's the then a lot of these women, because there's that kind of, I don't know. But you enjoy this.
Right. Don't you like this?
Yeah. Isn't it awesome? Isn't it empowering to have a guy fucking drop his whole load all over your face? Isn't it empowering? You know?
Uh,
But you know, when these things are happening, I can't, and it's hard. Like I said, I am in this world,
mhm.
and I've been in it for so long. I'm trying to gently extricate myself. I also have had great experiences in this world. I've met incredible people in this world. Um, but the porn is not the porn from 1980.
No.
It's not. It has gotten weirder and grosser and more disturbing.
Yeah.
I stopped doing, you know, the family role play stuff because it really makes me sick.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that means that I don't work very often, and that's fine. That's fine because I can't live with myself and do it, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but it I have to agree with the guy. I do not believe in abolishing it. First of all, I don't think that you can successfully abolish pornography in the same way you couldn't abolish alcohol.
Yeah.
I think that it would send it further into, I think it would end up dark web without any protections for people. The
Also,
existing protections that do exist would no longer exist. Um, I think bad things happen, right?
who's going to be the like person who decides what's porn and what isn't porn? And
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't like that. But I would like people to think a little bit more, ask themselves, do I need this? Do I really want this? What's the benefit? You know, it's just I don't
Sh-
I don't know what the answer is. I think it should be harder to it should be harder to access for sure
for minors
for minors.
especially.
Yeah.
Like there should
100%.
there's nothing in place that stops them from going
No.
on and looking at this stuff, and
No.
their brains are forming, and like with any other drug, if you start, the earlier you start drinking, the more likely you are to become an addict.
Yeah.
And it's formative at that point. It's like, ugh, that's terrifying. But yeah, like abolition isn't the answer, but you're right. I think like self management, self control, self, like, I don't know, like a maybe thinking about it in terms of,
Well, I would be happy if we could just like the type of content we put out. Let's start there,
right, let's
right?
back off
Because
the ledge here. Yeah.
yeah, like it does. We don't. It does not mean you know, bringing it to a screeching halt, but like let's stop the mommy daddy role play. Let's stop making, you know, women who look underage. You know,
Yes.
the kind of like the dog whistling for pedophiles, that kind of shit. Let's stop with the really sick, bizarre, like the pregnancy porn, like is nothing sacred anymore. Like they put pregnant bellies on these women and like do this whole fantasy thing. And I'm like, pregnancy sex is one thing. Like that's great, you know. It can be a beautiful, intimate experience between two people, but to fetishize it and just make it a mockery of it is nothing sacred anymore. It's
This is a
sick.
this is a really interesting proposal. Like I think that is so right. These are the things that we could do. That industry could take that up. Yeah, we don't want to see somebody like humping two pregnant bellies. That's just so fucking disturbing.
It's just like what is the like,
Depraved.
yeah, it is like oh, it's so gross.
I mean, if you're getting off on that, I don't know. I mean, I understand that like yeah, I guess the question is like, when does it become problematic for you individually, and when does it become a problem for our society that people are engaging with this material at the rate and frequency that they are? And how is that shaping relationships? How is that, and it's not good. And I think, we don't, there's for some reason, no one talks about it and nobody wants to address it. But like things like gambling addiction. So even my industry, right? Like the only behavioral addiction that's in the DSM is gambling addiction, and porn addiction is no different. And like my friend Michael Baker, hi Michael Baker. Um Tim, my husband, and all of his friends are into fantasy sports, so they use Yahoo for fantasy sports. And I guess they every year they check in with you before you renew or something. And they asked Michael Baker. Somehow they find that he answered a question on a questionnaire they sent to him and said that he had a gambling addiction. He was just kidding. They booted him off there for like 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And so, but they would never do that with porn. There's like like they don't like at Yahoo. They don't want to be responsible for feeding your addiction, but it's the exact opposite for the porn industry. It's like they profit off of feeding your addiction, and they don't put any guardrails up about that.
No.
No opt-ins for young kids. No, booting you off if you say you have an addiction. You know what I mean? But so I think my industry could step up and stop arguing about these minor details and put these kinds of addictions on the books. Come up with like take it out of the shadows and, really train people to work with it. Call it what it is. Yeah, and then people, we ourselves, well, there are plenty of organizations out there actually, and I will link to them in the show notes, but there are lots of organizations now for people who do feel like they're addicted to porn to go to and get community and talk to people and get help, which is nice.
Right. Yeah, because I don't want it to seem like I'm completely slamming sex work. I don't know. It's tough, man. I'm a work in progress for anyone listening that's like, but you're a pornographer. Like, I know.
I think
I'm figuring it out, man.
Exactly.
I just can't turn away. I can't. I'm really wrestling with this shit. I'm really wrestling with the kind of content that is made now. I'm wrestling with what is clearly, signs of just the problems that are making their way into like into young people's lives.
Yeah, you're only human, right? And you're like, we all live sometimes with sort of a cognitive dissonance about what we're doing. And because there's like the necessity of survival in life. And, you've like, I couldn't just pick up tomorrow and immediately change my career if I had issues with it.
Yeah, and I'm too old to join the circus, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that I could make a really awesome clown, but I am going to be 53 this year, and I'm not sure. Life on the road, touring with the circus. I got kids. I can't be away from Poochie and Bruno, and they're not going to function well in a circus environment. They're going to freak out like all the other clowns and elephants and, the other acts.
I think you'd be a really good mime.
I would be the best mime. Mr. Mime is my favorite Pokemon.
Aww.
I get so much grief for that, but I'm like, have you ever seen Mr. Mime? Dude, he helps out Ash Ketchum's mom. Like, he's like washing dishes. He's like running errands with her. I would love it if Mr. Mime was real and lived with me. He would be like the best assistant.
I have to look up Mr. Mime now.
He's so cute. All he says is mime. He goes, mime,
Aww.
Mr. Mime.
Oh, he's cute.
Yeah, see? He's adorable.
Oh. Yeah, no, I mean, you don't sound like you're, you know how we can tend to like, when we're having like a cognitive dissonance, we can tend to get like me, when I'm like with the drinking thing, like I could easily go into this world where I'm just sort of like obsessed with, talking about how bad alcohol is. It's like being able to hang out, not in that splitty place of like, having honest issues with it and also really wrestling with what's right for you is just so, I don't know. It's like, it makes total sense to me. Plus, when you started in the industry, it was so different. It was not this.
I also didn't have kids,
Yeah.
like that changes you a lot.
Yeah.
But, and then of course, just being around, young people and hearing what's going on in their lives and and then feeling like I don't ever want to be a part of something that's destroying them.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, like you said, like the content, I mean, let's be totally for real. When I started, the content was gnarly. But again, I just had me, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
also a really wicked cocaine problem, but you know, what are you going to do? Um,
I did
so,
not know that those coincided.
oh yeah, I was doing all kinds of rough stuff and, you know, all that. And I was like, yeah. And,
Oh my God, it's so funny because that's the last thing I would have ever expected for you to do cocaine. Because you've
well,
always been the healthy one. Like I was like the partier and would go out and get drunk, and you were always so healthy and like, you know.
oh, I had a dip, you know. And here's the thing too is I never in a million years would have imagined have like that cocaine would be my drug of choice.
Yes, that's I think the thing that surprised me. Yeah.
That really surprised me. I just assumed, you know, but I remember doing it and being like, oh man, I feel like $1 million. I feel like I could run the world. And then all of a sudden I'm like,
Yeah.
I was up to like a fucking 8 ball a day. I was a mess. I'm lucky to be alive. This is another one of those like the dumb shit people do. But like what the thing that saved me like I just had this moment where I was like, I used to do all these other things, like this isn't me. I mean, I needed, you know, a 12 step and a therapist and all that, but like I just had this sort of moment where I realized that I just this didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You know, when you just have that moment where you're like, oh, I'm gonna die, dude. Because I like
Yes.
I put I don't even I'm not gonna get into it. I don't want to completely horrify people, but like I installed a little too much cocaine in a different area because my nose
Mm-hmm.
didn't work anymore, and it was too much, and I
Mm.
thought I was gonna die.
Oh my God.
And so like that was it. That was when it was like, no, this is not how this can't it can't end like this, you know. Um, but yeah, so
I'm so glad you got off of it.
oh, I know, or else you'd be doing this podcast by yourself. You'd be talking.
It's funny though because you know, cocaine. I think about my stuff with alcohol, and I'm just like, I've been a drinker for so long, and it's so bad for you.
Well, it's
But
hard
it's
because alcohol is it's like the last well alcohol and marijuana are like the last like socially acceptable
yeah,
um vices.
but in some ways, like not that much more. It's like as dangerous as cocaine. I mean, people
Mm-hmm.
die all the time, and you know, just because I've been able to manage it, like you know, and not lose everything, doesn't mean that like it's good. I mean, I that's see, my cognitive dissonance is like, why would you? Like it's I love wine, and but then every time I drink wine now, knowing what I know about alcohol, I'm like, ugh, I don't know. This doesn't. Actually literally drinking a neurotoxin. So that's why I'm quitting, hoping, please God, let me quit. It's so compelling, right? It's so social. It's like been part of my life for so long. But it reminds me of like your struggle with this work, right? It's like, I'm not going to run around telling everybody that they're drinking a neurotoxin and they should stop. But
Right.
I know that, like, I know it's not good. But I, you know, I occasionally participate in that, and I don't want to anymore because I don't want the cognitive dissonance, and I also don't want to get one of the 7 cancers that are linked to drinking alcohol. Um, but, but yeah, it's like you can, you find sometimes we find ourselves doing things that we feel conflicted about. Um, anyway, I got off topic. What are we doing now?
Oh, do you want to hear about my trip to Dubai?
Yes, yes, yes. I was
Okay.
going to ask you about that.
So, gang, I took a trip to Dubai, and you can sort of link this to you stupid girl, what were you doing going to the club? And like not having a ride home. This is the same kind of idea. But there was a Saudi prince that was a fan of kink.com, which
Mm-hmm.
was a website that, you know, was I think we talked about it in the in sex episode, uh, a BDSM pornographic website that I was featured on a few times, and he was a fan and would arrange for some of the performers to do private shows for him that he could watch, like these girl domination sex shows.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a woman in the United States that would sort of set these up for him. And I knew two of the performers had gone to see him before, and they assured me everything is fine, it's great, whatever. And so the first trip was to Nice in France. And I flew out, stayed in a hotel, right steps from the ocean, did the show. It took all of like 2 hours. It was very easy with two of the other girls. And then I flew home. And then so when he asked for me to go again out, I went to Paris next because he would travel around, right? And when he was out of Saudi Arabia and stuff like that, he would arrange for these things. And so I went to Paris next, same situation. The next time was Miami, same situation. And then the next one was going to be going to Dubai, and I was very hesitant. And so a little bit about Dubai. Dubai's transformation is super interesting. It's grew really rapidly, super modernized, and then also like very strategic, like economic growth, right? So originally it was a small fishing and pearl diving community in the United Arab Emirates. And then there was like the spark of economic development when oil was discovered sometime in the 60s. It's ruled by the Al Maktoum family since the early 19th century. And now there's so much heavy tourism, real estate, and international business that goes on there. It's like boomed, right? It attracts like global corporations, like all kinds of shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it had to adapt to cultural tourism, right? Or it had to not adapt to cultural tourism, but like the culture had to adapt to tourism. And so like it had to kind of pull away from like the conservative, like kind of Islamic stuff to like relax things like dress codes and things like that for tourists. Because obviously, if you had to be if like you had to be buttoned up, especially it's so hot there, you're not going to necessarily want to go there. So they had to like kind of reduce like strict enforcement of religious practices in tourist zones and just be a little more kind of cosmopolitan. And so it's very popular place to go now. But that said, it's still in the UAE, and I was really nervous about going there. It was me and one other girl. So sometimes the prince would have like multiple girls, like sometimes as many as five, sometimes three, and sometimes two. And so it was going to just be me and this one girl. I didn't know her very well. I knew of her. And I made sure to keep my arms covered. Like I tried to be as conservative looking as possible because my thought process was even though these things aren't out and out illegal, I don't want to piss anybody off.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Did not want to piss anybody off.
You wanted to be like culturally respectful.
Yeah. So I was just like, and so I went and I met this girl. I'm going to call her Tina. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Tina was a carnival. I was like, Tina is going to get us killed. So I meet her. She's very nice. We're not sitting next to each other on the flight. We're sitting away from each other because I guess the tickets, the woman that arranged all this for us, like I think she booked, she secured one of us first and then the other one. So we didn't get seats next to each other on the flight there. We land in Dubai. I exit the plane, and the first thing I see on the wall in like bright lights is "Welcome to the Future," which I think is so kind of it's so perfect in a way.
It's chilling. It's like a scene from Hostel. Like
Yes,
right.
exactly. If Bret Easton Ellis collaborated with Eli Roth, this is what you'd get, right? You'd get the Dubai Porta Potty party. So Nothing untoward happened, like nothing gross at all. It was, the whole experience itself in terms of dealing with the prince. He was always respectful. We got very lucky, super easy. But we arrived, we land, we get in a cab or in a car. I can't remember if we took a taxi or if there was a car. Sometimes there would be a car, sometimes there would be, no, I think there was a car. And then we took a taxi to the airport when we left. But Tina tells me, like, oh yeah, I met these guys on the plane. There's a party tonight.
Oh boy.
I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think that's a good idea. She's like, oh, you don't want to go? I'm like, nah, dog. I'm here to do this job. I'm gonna, look around a little bit, maybe go to the Mall of Dubai, maybe go to Burj Khalifa. I don't know. I just I'm gonna lay low. So we go and like pretty quickly, we meet the prince, we do the show, and then his assistant pays us, and then we go back to our room. And then she's like, I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to go meet those guys. I'm like, Tina, you've got to be so careful. Like you can't, you don't understand. Like it's not that far to like get you in a car and take you over the border.
Tina, have you ever watched a horror movie in your life?
Tina, do you know this? Do you like Liam Neeson? You know this movie called Taken? Like, come on, dude. So she goes. I have like jet lag, so I'm like trying to rest. I can't. She comes back, tells me this wild story about like all the sex she fucking had. Right? I'm like, I don't understand. She says she went to a party on the beach. Then she goes with me to the Mall of Dubai. We get lost. Like it's crazy. The craziest thing was the wall of sharks,
There's
like
a
next to the
wall of
H&M.
sharks.
So there's like it's like an aquarium, like a shark
Ooh.
aquarium in the mall next to the H&M. It's so bizarre.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
there's something really like,
Chilling.
yeah. I'll send you pictures. I
Okay.
have pictures from that trip. Um, and then we go back. She leaves again. She hasn't slept, by the way, at all. And neither have I. But that night I finally slept. I woke up in the morning. Our taxi was going to be taking us in like an hour. I'm texting her. I'm texting her. I'm texting her. She's not responding. I pack my bag. I pack her bag. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. Right? She finally rolls in.
Oh,
And she tells me again about what a great night. I'm just fucking glad she's okay. I'm glad that she
yeah.
didn't end up in a porta potty party situation, right?
Yes.
Um, I didn't back then. I didn't know about it, but I knew that sometimes bad things happen when you're really fucking far away from home. You know what
I
I mean?
mean, and you're a woman and you're traveling by
And
yourself
you're a
and you're meeting up
woman
with strange
in,
guys.
yes,
Yeah.
in a country where the culture isn't super excited about you being like a loose liberal woman. You know,
Hmm.
so we get to the airport. She sleeps the entire flight back. And
Wow.
so that's sort of like that's not a super exciting story, except that I will say there's two places that I've been to. I haven't been everywhere in the world, but there's two places I've been to that felt spooky to me. Dubai was one of them, and Miami was the other.
Hmm.
Just Miami's always made me, it's always felt spooky to me. I don't
Hmm.
know why. Not even just because it's in Florida. There's something about it that feels like there's things in the shadows.
Yeah, even though it's like sunny all the time.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's something there. Yeah,
Sinister.
very sinister, and
Oh,
also with Dubai. But
wow.
yeah, so that is that I know that I was
Well,
telling
you've
you
been
that.
there. I mean, yeah, that's like you've been there and you've seen it and you've felt it. So you could put yourself in their positions.
Yeah, it is a very, that place. It's there's the juxtaposition of like I would see these women like fully in like the niqab, right? They're covered. You can't even see their eyes. walking together through like the Mall of Dubai, and then seeing a girl in short shorts passing by them the other direction.
Mm.
And that kind of like juxtaposition is just sort of chilling to me,
Mm-hmm.
because it makes me think of like, and again, I know it's not just Middle Eastern men that are engaging in these things. There's plenty of, I think it's just any man with money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, not any man, but some of these twisted millionaire, billionaire types are come from many different walks of life. But I think the shared thing is a hatred of women.
Mm-hmm.
But the big criticism of like Islam is this notion of women as property.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I just uh it was just very chilling to see that, because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that was so much a part of like, you see a woman and you want to shit in her mouth, abuse her, humiliate her, put her in an impossible situation of what are you willing to do for money? And then the real kicker is the self-hatred that she has to live with afterwards.
Oh God, yeah.
And then women that are not allowed to drive, not allowed to be seen, not allowed to even have their eyes seen, some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's really not that different. And so, oh
Mm.
man, I this is probably some dangerous territory. I don't want to piss off anyone that is like hearing me and going like, you're criticizing another culture. I don't know. I guess I'm criticizing anything that hates women.
Yeah, there's it's just so culturally different
Yeah.
for us. Um, I think we're talking about sort of like though the tensions of like us taking it too far potentially culturally the
Yeah.
other direction, right? Like anything goes. And then there's the other side of it where it's like um, there has to be such a covering of women, you know, of their bodies, of their eyes, and like sometimes they can't go to school in certain places, or, you know, um,
There's something to be said also for a place like Dubai that, decided to relax all of these rules and religious practices in the interest of money.
yeah,
And that's interesting. It's like, again, money. It comes down to money. What are you willing to give up for money? And for this, it's tourism for this place, which I think a lot of people took issue with, because Dubai then becomes like
playground
this
for.
haven, yeah,
Yeah.
like a Las Vegas almost,
Hmm.
where anything goes, and that's got to upset quite a few people.
Right,
I mean,
right.
probably a lot of like the practicing, the more devout Muslims. But it reminds me, I know I was telling you that, so I've been reading, um, I read the New Testament, and now I'm making my way through the Old Testament, and I'm on Numbers now. but
Hmm.
but of course in Genesis there's that really great story about, in Genesis 19, Lot in Sodom.
Hmm.
And when the angels come disguised as men to visit Lot and to essentially warn him about the fact that God is, angry and wants to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And so the angels are there in Lot's home, and then like the people in the village, in the town, come banging on Lot's door, and they're like, "You have two guys in there. We want to have sex with them. Bring them out."
That's so
Uh,
wild that this is in the Bible. I had no idea
the
until you.
Bible, the Old
Yeah.
Testament is wild. So yeah, I'm just imagining them sounding like these creepy, like, yeah, bring them out here, and Lot is like, "No, I'll give you my daughters," which
Oh my God.
I know it's I. it is
Lot, come
lot is
on.
it was typical during that
Yeah.
time of like, you got to protect these people here. These are, these are my daughters. Go ahead. And they're like, no, we want the guys. And the angels are like, you know what? You got to get out of here. You've got to get out of here now. Like, take your daughters, take your wife, take your family, and leave. And God instructs them, do not look back. You have to look forward. You can't look back. If you look back, something bad's going to happen to you. Lot's wife looks back. She turns to a pillar of salt. Lot has to keep going with his daughters. And as like Sodom and Gomorrah are destroyed.
Hmm.
So I'm like paraphrasing that. But it reminds me so much of like that. Like, there's something so end times
Yes.
about the Dubai Porta Potty party, about where we are culturally, the kinds of things that the things that we're normalizing.
Like
Uh,
Lily Phillips having like 50 guys going in her back door and like
going in her back
post.
door and then having to go to the hospital because her butthole's like blown out,
Oh,
right?
that was a different that was somebody who was emulating her. So
Oh,
so
gotcha.
Lily Phillips did the 50 people, and then this person was just taking up the challenge and did it herself, and then she had to go get surgery, and then she posted her video about going to get surgery, and I'm just like, wow, okay, like we live in such an exhibitionist moment, like
Because
where
anything is content now.
yeah, it's so, I mean, there's so many things to talk about this, uh but you see, right, the result of the escalation and how it continues to escalate, you know? Um, Lily does it, someone else, a little copycat shows up and does it, and then it just ratchets up from there. Uh, it's like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, yeah, it's in that is it's so interesting too, because with that story, I think I told you, like, when I took Bible as literature in college, which was required for my comparative literature major. I know some of you people are like, comparative literature major? No wonder you ended up in porn. It's like whenever that thing pops up on Instagram or TikTok or something, it's like, here are 10 of the most useless degrees. I flip past it. I'm like, man, it wasn't that long ago I paid off my student loans. Like, I don't need to fucking
Oh my god.
I'm afraid comparative literature is going to pop up.
Oh my god. No, my dad like was, I think he was so disappointed when I was like, I'm going to be a film studies major at a university where we didn't make any films. We just talked about films.
Of course. But
Yeah.
hey, look, we have the best conversations about movies, and I
Exactly.
love research, so we're
Yes.
we're using them. But
Yes.
but Bible as literature was required. And so it's so interesting to remember that story from because there's so much biblical allegory in movies and books and all that kind of stuff. And I remember thinking about Lot's wife as this sort of like feminist kind of like hero, in that she dared to look back. And
Mm-hmm.
that of course she looked back because that's where she lived and that's where she had friends and that's like all that kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was very much like this sort of in defense of Lot's wife perspective that I had. And then looking at it as like a new Christian and seeing that the instruction is, you will die if you look back and you don't look forward. You have to look forward, right? So it's like
Yeah.
a different kind of thing of like, it's a simple instruction. What does it mean to look back and not look forward?
It's really interesting psychologically too. The
Yeah.
importance of not getting stuck
Yeah,
in,
you don't want to get stuck. You don't
right.
want to get stuck. You don't want to get stuck in old habits. You don't want to get stuck hanging on to something that is dangerous and no longer serves you. Um, so it is such an interesting perspective.
Hmm.
And then of course, I'm like, we're in the end times. People are
Totally.
shitting in people's mouths. We're in the end times.
Well, a lot of people are saying that, and I think there is some sort of like, I feel like there's got to be a correction of some kind, because think about what we did, and he says this in the podcast. Think about what we did around secondhand smoke. It's like we recognized that, personal freedom is a big important thing to both of us, right? We
Oh
both
yeah.
have like libertarian streaks.
Yeah.
And but it's when it becomes another person's issue, then that's where it starts to, when it becomes a public issue, then we have to start to make changes. And I would argue that porn is impacting more relationships than we would like to admit.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. And it does feel like something needs to happen around that more people need to become aware of the dangers, and that public we need to get together to figure out how to address it. And in the podcast I listened to, it was really interesting. He's like, I think it's in 50 years it's going to be just like smoking. It's going to be, people are going to, it'll still exist, but people will realize the dangers of it. And which I think that's all. I mean, if we just had that would be great.
Yeah. Or
Ooh.
just better porn, man. What about porn just for couples? Like things that are almost like function as like intimacy guides. I don't know.
Yeah, or like
Like,
erotica. Like some people like romance novels, like something that would spice things up a little, but not involve, you know, a kid having sex with a stepmom or something.
right.
Ooh, did you want me to weigh in on what I would do if I had a client that came to me?
Yeah,
Or
why don't we take that to our
oh yeah, let's
yeah.
announce that.
Yeah, we will be starting a Patreon, and we are going to have bonus content on that Patreon, um, which will be available soon, where we just sort of we get deeper into or go off on a tangent specific to our episode.
Yeah, so we'll be posting the Patreon and we'll let you know when. Should we pick a date now or just like do it and then let people know?
We'll do it and let people know. I don't want to, just in
Yeah,
case.
I don't want to put I don't want that on my to-do list right now. I don't want a deadline.
Right.
Um, so we'll have like the content we were thinking of having. One of the things is to do like after we record episodes, we're going to meet for a little while afterwards and we'll just have like a candid conversation about what we were just talking about. And it'll be like 15-minute. So if you subscribe, you'll be able to access that additional content along with other things that we're planning to do.
Other fun stuff.
Yeah. So should we wrap it up then?
We can we can stop this episode. I feel like I need to go wash my brain with bleach,
Ugh.
and take some antibiotics after all our talk about
I know.
porta
I can
potties.
barely. I like have a I hate porta potties, and I will only use them as a very last result. I would probably risk going to the bathroom in a public situation behind a building before I would go into a porta potty. I'm so horrified by them, and even public restrooms, I have a very hard time going into because poo molecules float around in the air when you flush the toilet, and I
Dude,
think about that every time I go in.
you should have seen me in the like little public bathroom yesterday at my kid's soccer game. I
Oh.
was like fucking Nadia Comaneci, like maneuvering my body to try and pee without touching anything. So I feel you.
I hold my breath as
Yes,
long
I
as I
do
can.
too.
Yeah, I can't even.
I've almost passed. I'm like,
Yes.
Please hurry. Yeah.
All right. Well, listeners, we love you. And if you want to follow us, please do on Instagram or on Twitter, X, Secret Pass Pod on X, and Secret Passage Podcast on Instagram.
Yes, and we will see you again next week.
See you later.